Hello, beautiful peaches. Welcome to the Macros, Metabolism, and Motivation Beautiful Peach podcast. I'm your host, Caitlen, here to help you find your most unwavering love, beauty, and kindness for yourself inside and out. I will be teaching you nutrition and macro tracking secrets, reverse diet and metabolism health tips and tricks, and motivating the heck out of you so you want to leap up and start conquering your goals right away. I am here to help bring you the light at the end of the tunnel so you can discover that self-love and truly become the most confident, beautiful peach possible. So grab a pen and a piece of paper, or if you're in the car or at the gym, go ahead and bump up your volume just a little so we can drown out those gym grunters next to you, and we can go ahead and dive right in. Don't forget to snag your completely free high-protein macro cookbook by simply doing a 5-star rate and review on this podcast. All you need to do is submit a 5-star rate and review, then send us your name and email through the link in the show notes so we know exactly where to send your cookbook. By submitting your 5-star rate review, this will also automatically enter you into the weekly podcast macro calculator giveaway. Every week, I give away a copy of my See You Schmidt macro calculator to one lovely winner who leaves an awesome 5-star rate and review. This winner is announced every week on my Instagram story as well as my newsletter email list. So leave that 5-star rate and review, and I'll see you in the episode. What is up, my beautiful peaches? I am so excited to dive into today's episode. We are going to be talking all about binge eating and taking a deep dive into the different triggers that you might have when it comes to binge eating, the science behind binge eating, because it's actually more than just a mental game that we end up playing. And I've been there. I, way back when, about 10 years ago, was really stuck in that restrict binge cycle. And now being on the other side, I was mind blown when I actually found out that there are scientific reasons behind why we binge eat. So we're going to be talking about the science behind binge eating, as well as diving into the mentality behind binge eating. I'm actually going to work on giving you guys some action steps to really help to start you beat the binge. I am the kind of person, I'm type A. I love my action steps. I love a step-by-step game plan on knowing exactly what needs to be done. So in this new season of the Macros and Metabolism Beautiful Peach podcast, I am working on bringing in action steps for each and every single one of the episodes, or most of the episodes. You have something that you can actually take and say, yes, I'm going to go implement this today. My goal with my podcast is to help you grow, is to help you get out of that restrict binge cycle, and to educate you behind all of these different pieces that you might not know, solely because the diet industry doesn't share those, but I am here to share that education for you beautiful ladies. Let's dive on into this episode. I actually want to talk about my personal history when it comes to binge eating, where I was 10 years ago when it came to binge eating and where I am today. It has been a journey, and something that I think I personally find really helpful about my own personal journey is that now being on the other side, I'm supporting clients through the same journey that I went through. And also, I have over 12 years of experience and education in coaching clients. So it's really nice for me to be able to actually resonate and understand where your head is at when you are going through these binge and these restrict cycles and this food guilt and feeling very alone. You're not alone. And I want you to give yourself a really big bear hug from me. And I think that it really makes my heart happy when you amazing ladies tell me that you are seeing these changes because of the words of wisdom I shared around binge eating and around dieting, or even my coaching clients, and the excitement to have this all of a sudden, especially in BPM, have this group of women who are now going through it with you, and you realize that you're not alone. So whether you are a client of mine or not, I want you to know that you are not alone, and I am just very excited to support you in your own growth. So I would say a little bit over 10 years ago, I was in a place where I found myself really struggling with my body image, and I found myself trying to find answers. And I think even back then, I was in a space where I wanted to know the what, the why, and the how, but I wasn't going in the right direction to learn what those were. And so what happened was I found myself doing what everybody did, just leaning into the diet industry because we don't know better. And I found myself doing countless diets, whether that was simple elimination of me just deciding I wanted to cut out carbs because I saw a famous actress doing it and I wanted to follow foot. And it led me to creating my own massive diet book, which none of it made sense. None of it went together. It was just a bunch of different eliminations and restrictions that I was pulling from different diets. What started, I should say, as just one sole, I don't feel good in my body. I want to do something about it, which is amazing, right? I had those intentions of doing something to better myself, but I went in a path, a very common path that women go down, and it led me into that world of dieting for many, many years. A quick side story that I actually like, now being on the other side and now having this amazing relationship with food. I am going to Universal Studios this weekend with my husband for my 30th birthday. I've talked about this in past episodes, just a quick side story, because I know this is such a topic of debate. I grew up as a Disney fan. Disney is my favorite thing in the world. And also, I am a huge Harry Potter fan. So when I met my husband, we actually met 8 years ago. So we've been together for almost a decade. And he's never been to Disney, or he never had been before he met me. So we always have this debate. Are we going to Universal? Are we going to Disney? Which one are we going to? And I almost had us going to actually both Universal and Disney because I am obsessed with Harry Potter World as well. And we don't have enough time to go to both. So I'm like, all right, it's fine. We'll go to Harry Potter World. You know what? It does actually relate to food freedom, because what I was going to say is I'm so gosh darn excited to go and drink the butterbeer and enjoy all the fun things. There's something called a chocolate emporium, and it's a restaurant, but they also have amazing dessert. And every time we go to Universal, we get our desserts from Chocolate Emporium, and the lack of guilt and the soul just full-on excitement for it is one of the most freeing things in the entire world, to just be excited to make those memories and not feel any kind of stress about, I've got this trip coming up, I need to restrict, I need to hold back on all this. And then all of a sudden you're on that trip, completely binging, completely having all of the stress and taking away from actually enjoying those memories. And something that's really neat is I've learned the what, the why, and the how. And please remember to learn the what and the why and the how, whether that's coming from me or whether that's a different resource, the education behind what we're doing. And I was actually cooking. I was visiting my family. There was this potato recipe, and I kid you not, this recipe book explained what the recipe was. It gave the full instructions for the recipe, and then it explained why we are making it in this way. And it was a potato recipe, which was really cool. And I will admit, I didn't actually cook the potatoes, but we were talking about it with my family. And my sister texted me the other day, and she said she actually remembers what to do with those potatoes with this amazing recipe. They were the best baked potatoes I have quite literally ever had. And baked potatoes can be really boring too. Like if you don't make them in a really tasty way, they can be really boring. But we did loaded baked potatoes. So we added all the different things. I did this basil, goat cheese, sea salt topping, which was amazing. I actually posted it on my Instagram story. What I absolutely loved about this recipe book was it talks you through the what, the why, the how in short. And what's really cool is my sister literally messaged me and she's like, I actually remember how to do this recipe. I understand why we are cooking it this way. And it's cool because I like to see in different spaces outside of just fitness, outside of just nutrition, how the what and the why and how can actually impact us remembering what we're doing, understanding what we're doing. And I think it's really cool to give examples even outside of just the reverse diet world, the macro world. Bringing it back to this episode here, when we are talking about binge eating, coming from a space where I was refusing to eat even one piece of chocolate due to stress over, oh my gosh, I'm going to binge, into a space where I am just totally free. The problem with the way that I was going about food and the way that I was going about staying away from certain foods is that I didn't actually realize that what I was doing was setting myself up for longer term problems. When I was restricting my food, when I was staying away from bad food, when I was feeling proud for staying away from eating breakfast or eating lunch or fasting as long as I could, I saw that as a symbol of pride, which is wild to think about. Because when we are in those spaces where we are fasting, where we are trying to drink coffee to suppress our hunger, where we are eating a protein bar instead of a real meal. And I don't have any problems with protein bars as a supplement, as a snack. We don't need to be doing that. We want to be fueling our body with real food so we can get those nutrients in, so we can really heal our body, bringing it back to the basics and healing our body with food. And so the problem that I really was starting to create without even realizing it is when I was doing all of fasting, when I was doing all the different diets, when I was restricting, I was slowly but surely slowing down my metabolism. I was messing with my cycle. I actually lost my period for a very, very long time. Libido was wonky. Energy was wonky. My energy was completely shot. I found myself coming home from the gym feeling absolutely exhausted. And almost every single day, I was so tired that I would fall asleep on the couch, do nothing for a couple hours because my body could not handle the amount that I was trying to push it through with the low amount of food that I was eating. And I was setting myself up for weight regain, which luckily I have been able to fix by reverse dieting. And of course, I always say, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm always the kind of person where I want you to never go into this place of panic mode of, oh my gosh, I've done all these crazy things. I'm panicking. What do I do? Take a deep breath. You're good. You're okay. What we need to do is get you tracking your macros and reverse dieting if you are saying, this is me. And as we're doing that process, we're going to be able to get out of that binge eating. And what I was doing when I was creating these diet thoughts in my head is I was basing all of what I was doing off of the diet world rather than what science actually says, how our body actually works. And looking back at it, it really truly was leading me into that cycle of restricting our food because we are fearing weight regain. We are trying to lose weight. We are trying really hard to fit into this diet box that isn't going to be realistic. And after we would go into the place of restricting as long as we could, whether that was all day, whether that was a couple hours, whatever it may be, all of a sudden we have this restriction and we have this complete binge, which leads into this total free-for-all. Then once the binge is over, we feel this mass amount of guilt and we now feel like we have to start over. And it turns into that cycle playing on repeat. And sometimes even when we have that binge, what happens is we restrict our food. We'll bring actually a true example that I have. So I was really struggling back in my freshman year of college. I went to Clemson University with some of my friends. If I actually went out to eat with them, I was known very often to turn down social plans, to turn down going out to eat in fear of getting off track. And it actually did make me lose a lot of friends and struggle really hard with keeping up with friends because I was turning into a person who just wanted to stay inside because I was so scared of getting off track and I was so terrified of the guilt that I would feel. However, when I did go out to eat, I would restrict all day long. Then I would get a salad with chicken, no salad dressing, no toppings. I would remove everything. And what would happen is I would be so absolutely starving. And I would say, okay, I'm just going to eat a couple chips. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm already off track. I might as well keep going. And then bam, I have the binge. It will continue on through dinner. It will continue on through the evening. And I wake up the next day saying, now we've got to start over. And one thing that I think is really, really important to note is when we are having these feelings, and I'm going to talk you through the mental side as well as the physical, that alone is a mental feeling of wanting to enjoy food. Food is meant to be enjoyed. And I think that there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think too many people out in the world create food as this enemy and say, you're addicted to sugar. It's terrible. You're not addicted to sugar. That's not the way that this works. They're saying, oh my gosh, you're so stressed. You're just stress eating. And yes, it is possible to stress eat. And also, there are certain situations where I'm actually okay with having the chocolate chip muffin when I'm stressed. And I want to talk about that because so many people make us feel guilty for having food that we enjoy because it makes us happy. And that's okay. Let's talk about the scientific side since we've touched on a little bit of the mental side, but I want to talk about the scientific side because I think it's really nice to have the science behind why we binge first, and then we can move into that mental piece. And I've talked about this in the past of how our bodies can't tell the difference between us intentionally restricting our food in order to lose weight in fear of weight regain to try and stick to a diet. Our body can't tell the difference between us intentionally restricting our food and us being out in the wilderness, not being able to find food. Our body just looks at this low amount of food as she's not getting enough food. We need to do something about this. And because our body doesn't understand the difference, its main function is to keep us alive. Its main function is to keep us living, keep our energy going, keep us up and moving and walking the dog and going to work and enjoying our family and chasing after our kiddos. And our body needs energy to survive, to function, to keep us moving. when it starts to feel depleted of the nutrients that it needs to keep us energized, it starts to go into this space where it's going to say, hey, I need to start down regulating some of the functions in our body to make sure that I'm able to keep you moving forward and to make sure we're keeping energy going to our brain to make sure we are functioning and make sure we are at least going forward. So what's going to happen is our body's going to actually start to down regulate our energy. This is one of the huge things that people notice when they're not eating enough. And what happens is you start to have this massive lack of energy in the gym and also outside of the gym. The term for this is called our NEAT energy. This is the energy outside of our planned energy, like going to the gym. And so you'll start to notice that you don't have as much energy for running after your kiddos. You don't have as much energy to go on walks with your significant other, to enjoy those dates because you're like, oh man, I'm so tired. And so what happens is our body's literally starting to down-regulate our energy to try and keep up with the less amount of food that we are eating. It actually will slow our metabolism. And I talk about that all the time when we are in a prolonged calorie deficit. If you've never actually healed your metabolism, if you've never done a reverse diet, even if you did diet 10 years ago and you are not currently dieting, your metabolism actually is still impacted from that diet you did 10 years ago. And I would still recommend doing a reverse diet so you can get that metabolic set point to increase your metabolism. Even if you do want to lose weight, I still highly, highly encourage that. If there were any kind of downregulation or system in your body that was still a little bit wonky, that's a residual from that 10 years ago of dieting, you can actually start to heal that. It's never too late. And that's why I think it's so important to not stress and not go, into panic mode if I have a slow metabolism. Oh my gosh, I'm in this space where I don't know what to do. Don't panic. We've got you. I've got you. We'll just move through this. I actually did a really big episode on this. I go into massive depths of what is downregulated, the changes in our body. If you're like a nerd like me and you're like, oh yeah, I want to learn, go listen to it. It was episode 87 and episode 88. And then the last thing here scientifically, so then what's actually going to happen with binging specifically is our brain is actually signaled to cause us to binge, which is mind-blowing. I know it's weird to say this, but I think it's cool. I think it's cool that our body is capable of taking care of us. So when we're not taking care of it, our body's going to give us 110% all the time. However, if we're not giving it 110%, we're starting to pull that energy away. When we're not getting enough fuel to our body, our brain is going to be signaled to cause that binge. It's basically going into survival mode. It's saying, hey, I need to do something to get fuel into your body. And it felt so depleted for so long that it's going to want you to consume more food to balance out that restriction. And the problem with this is, number one, we don't want to be pushing our body to that space. We want to really make sure we're healing our metabolism so we're not in that restricted space and we're not binge eating. But number two, it's actually going to mess with a couple different things. So if you've ever binged and you wake up the next day and you're like, my digestion is off, I am completely bloated, we're physically not feeling good, mentally we're not feeling good. When we binge, it's going to mess with our digestion. I personally struggled with this when I was in that restrict binge cycle, when I was in that dieting world. My digestion was way wonky. I was bloated quite literally all the time. And when we're holding out on food, when we're fasting, when we're skipping meals, when we're restricting our food, it's messing with our digestion and it's messing with the way that our body normally works. We have this mass binge. Our digestive system isn't ready to take care of all of that food at once. And so it ends up having a backup, which it will go away. When you have those binge episodes, give yourself a breather and know that part of the healing and part of the growth comes from those ups and downs. I have clients in BPM who will have a binge, will be amazing for a couple weeks at the beginning of BPM, all of a sudden have a binge. And it's immediate in our mind, we're like, I failed, but no, you haven't. And what's really beautiful about the fact that you just had a binge is you're on this road to completely making these amazing changes. And now you can actually have the self-awareness to look at that binge and say, okay, so why did it happen? How did it happen? Cool. Now let's go ahead and create a game plan so you know how to navigate those situations moving forward when you start to have that binge vibe coming on. If this is happening to you, I would love to hear it. I know firsthand from my clients, so I can have these experiences of explaining how I want you to move forward and see it. But what happens is you'll have this self-awareness. And so when you start to have these feelings of a binge coming, you can actually take action on that. And with my clients, chat through a game plan on exactly what you need to do to not binge again. And it's beautiful and it's incredible because it literally changes your life and it removes the binge eating. It is so wonderful to see those changes and it's so incredibly freeing when you binge. don't beat yourself up. Instead, think about it. But before you move past it, sit down and say, okay, so why did I binge? Let's think about this. Let's have that self-awareness so you're able to start to pinpoint the triggers. And we'll dive into this a little bit when I start talking about the mental, which I'm about to do. But what happens is we have this trigger that causes the binge or causes us to, have this stress around food. And what happens is we actually remove that trigger. But the problem with removing the trigger is we're just brushing a problem under a rug. We're not actually taking care of the problem. We're just putting a Band-Aid on top of it. So what I absolutely love to do is actually slowly and very carefully, very gently remove those Band-Aids. Make sure my clients are saying SOS or very gently removing those Band-Aids so you're able to start healing from the inside out so we can attack those triggers head on in a very gentle and kind way and start to heal from the inside out. So I want to talk about actually some triggers. So let's go ahead and dive into the mental side of binge eating. And there are three main reasons that I want to talk through. The first one is going to be binge eating from not allowing yourself to have certain types of food, which we talked about a little bit. The second one is going to be, I believe, eating from stress. And the third one is emotional. I want to talk about each of those. And we're going to start with eating foods we consider quote unquote bad. I personally do not believe in good food and bad food. I believe that yes, there are foods out there that we want to be consuming on a daily basis because they are loaded with nutrients and they're so great for our body. And also, yes, there are foods that are going to be less nutritious, but they're not bad foods. And once you learn how to have moderation around those foods, it allows you to have that freedom of eating them without the binge. And the biggest thing that completely saved and changed the trajectory of my life is tracking my macros. And just to give a quick background, macros are our protein, our carbs, and our fat. And the term macros is a shortened term for macronutrients, which is the category for a protein, our carbs, and a fat. So when we're tracking our macros, we're just tracking our protein, carbs, and our fat, which is what food is made up of. And so when we're tracking our macros, we know for a fact that we are eating the exact amount of food that our body needs, whether we are in a calorie deficit, whether we are in a reverse diet, whether we are lean bulking, whether we are in maintenance. It does not matter what you are doing when you are tracking your macros and doing it properly. Please do not go to MyFitnessPal or all of those apps that have you just type in your height, weight, age, and activity factor. Those will not give you the correct macros. You want to make sure that your macros are calculated based on your metabolic health, which you can check out my macro calculator if that is something that you are like, hey, I need to start tracking my macros first. You can track your macros in MyFitnessPal, but make sure you don't calculate them in there. I personally use My Macros Plus. I love it. It is my favorite. I think it is so fun and easy to use. Some people use MyFitnessPal. There's other ones that people use. So use whatever app you want to actually track. Just don't calculate in those apps. Any kind of automated calculator are going to be no-nos. Coming back to tracking our macros and how this can really help with getting away from the good food, bad food mentality is when we know we're eating the right amount of food for our body, it allows us to then say, okay, let's go ahead and have a Reese's and let's go ahead and add that on into our macros for the day. We're going to eat this. We're going to know that we're eating the correct amount of food because our macros are correct. Now we have the confidence. Now we have the comfort of knowing as long as we're hitting our macros, we're going to be right on track. Great. Awesome. Let's go ahead and eat a Reese's every single day this week. I personally have been eating a Reese's every single day this week. And the beauty is I'm going on vacation later on today, going into Universal, and I have zero stress about the fact that I've been eating Reese's. I had pizza earlier this week. It was great. And the beautiful thing is I also, just to add this in there, fueled my body with plenty of nutrients, all of the fruits, all of the veggies, getting my fiber in, all of those amazing things. But the beauty is we can have the best of both worlds. We can eat our cake and have it too. It may be nerve-wracking to start introducing these foods into your life. And I always say, if you need that accountability, please let me know. That's what I am here for. I've been coaching full-time for 6 years and it just lights this excited fire in me. And I just get so excited for my clients. So please never hesitate to reach out. I am always here. I think what really is important here is when it comes to the facing the trigger head on, when it comes to our relationship with food, and it comes to good and bad foods, it's really beautiful when we can have the confidence of saying, okay, well, I'm actually tracking my macros and that alone has removed that trigger. Instead of saying every time I eat a Reese's, I completely binge, let's go ahead and let's track our macros so we know we have the confidence we're right on track. Let's go ahead and actually implement eating those Reese's every single day and then get through the week and have a little thought and say, okay, well, I actually got through the entire week. I knew every single day that I had a Reese's, I might have wanted more, but I knew I was going to eat more tomorrow and the next day. And it allows us to start removing the good food, bad food thoughts because we're going to start seeing changes to our body because we are tracking our macros. Now, just a note here also, once you start tracking your macros, you will want to make sure you're adjusting your macros I won't dive into that in this episode because it's a fully loaded topic. However, when it comes to going into calorie deficits, reverse diets, lean bulks, transferring from phase to phase, there will be different macro adjustments for quite literally all of them. It is a higher level. It's not hard when you know what you're needing to do, but it is a complex process, which is why I do teach it in my Beautiful Peach Mastermind. It's included in my Nutrition Academy course. It's a whole entire thing there. But please stay tuned because I start to dive deep into that. And I actually have a number of episodes coming up. I've got topics for months, my gals. But if you have any topics and you're like, hey, Kate, I would love to learn this, please shoot me a DM on Instagram and be like, I want to know more about adjusting macros for calorie deficits. Can you just do this or that? Tell me, ask me. I'd love to hear that. When it comes to tracking our macros, it gives us that food freedom. It allows us to step away from the good food, bad food thoughts. And it is life-changing. So I highly encourage, if you are not tracking your macros, please go ahead and start. It will change your life. Once you're tracking your macros, then you can learn to do your calorie deficits, to reverse diet, to do all of those beautiful things. Now, when it comes to binge eating due to stress, I think this is about to be very controversial. I have a very interesting belief when it comes to stress eating. I think so many people say, don't stress eat, just don't stress eat. You shouldn't do it. But why not? Here's my thought. I'm having a very stressful day, and I know eating a chocolate chip muffin and a caramel latte as I sit at the coffee shop and I do my work, if it's going to make me happy, excuse my language, but hell yes, I'm going to get that chocolate chip muffin. I am going to get that caramel latte. I'm going to fit those into my macros and I will be a happy gal. And also, if you are going to stress eat to avoid your problems, that, my friend, is a totally different scenario. And that actually leads us into our third trigger here, which is emotional eating, which is why I can't get too in depth in it because it really is person to person. And I cannot even tell you how I've worked with thousands of clients over many years. And there are so many different variations when it comes to emotional eating and your past and your family history, your diet history. However, I think there are a couple pieces that we can dive into. And I think what's important to note is if we are in a space where we are feeling these emotions and we are eating to avoid feeling our emotions and we are eating to avoid thinking about those feelings, that's when we might want to say, yes, we can definitely enjoy that food. We can definitely eat it because it brings us joy. And also, we want to make sure that if we're having these past emotions, we get to talk about it, we get to learn about it, we get to uncover it. Instead of suppressing what we're feeling, we want to bring it back up. And for a lot of people, it's really hard to talk about their emotions. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I love emotions. I think they're beautiful. Learning about relationships and learning communication with each other and learning each other's needs and learning how to support each other in those spaces might be harder for each other. There may be times when he's trying to communicate what he feels, but he can't tell what it is yet. Or it's just really cool to start to learn about your emotions and go through that process. It's a very common thing for people to not be at as ease with their emotions. So what I would suggest is if you are someone who's starting to eat to suppress your feelings, start to think, okay, am I having this binge because I don't feel happy and I'm trying to get that happiness from food, but it's turning into a binge rather than just picking a piece of food that I'm going to enjoy and eating it and moving on? Are you feeling unworthy or maybe you're self-sabotaging? Start to think about these feelings. And these are loaded questions as well, which is why it's not something that I can get into this podcast episode. I absolutely can support you with that in my Beautiful Peach Mastermind. And also, if it's that deep instilled, maybe it's a great thing to start to journal every day, start to write those things down, start to have that self-awareness so you can start to really have the aha, I know what's going on. Now I'm going to start making action steps to start healing those emotions, to start healing those inner things and to do that inner work. And it is a beautiful change that we can have when we go from a space of suppressing what we're feeling and having these insecurities in our body and having this self-sabotage because we don't feel we're worthy to change, or having these feelings of I can't put myself first, which actually ends up making us self-sabotage even more, honestly. One of my BPM clients had this realization that by taking care of herself and by putting herself first, allowed her to put everyone else first. I've talked about this in my own personal experience. When I'm struggling and when I'm not able to feel my best, I'm going to be fully honest with this. I will start to drain from those around me. And I'm not going to show up as my best. I'm not going to be the best wife that I can be. I'm not going to be the best sister, friend, daughter that I can be. But when I'm putting myself first, this is not a selfish act. This is actually doing good for those around you because you are filling your cup. You're taking care of you so you can better take care of those around you. This was a lesson that took me forever to learn. And it's so beautiful when we have this awareness that when we take care of ourselves, we're taking care of those around us. So with all of this, my beautiful peaches, loaded episode here, very loaded episode with the science behind binge eating, the emotions, the mental, the stress, everything else, the triggers behind binge eating. I actually have a Beat the Binge blueprint. It's not live. It's something that you can get if you purchase the Reverse Diet course in full. You get free access to that. So I don't actually have it anywhere you can purchase. I will be setting that up probably relatively soon. But if you're like, oh, yes, I want the Beat the Binge blueprint, shoot me a message on Instagram and I can figure out how to get it up on the website a little bit quicker if you do want access to that. I want to give you the biggest bear hug. I can't do it in person. That's like my dream. One of my clients told me I should be on Oprah, and then I dreamed that night that I saw them all in person. I woke up and I was like, I'm so happy. But give yourself a big bear hug. You are not alone. You are okay. You are worthy of change. You are capable of change. You can do the hard things. I believe in you and I know you can do it. If I could do it and I was at a terrible place in my life, I was at the lowest low I've ever been. If I got out of that, you can too. It just takes you stepping up to the plate and just moving forward and taking action, taking ownership of your life and making it happen. So with all this, I'm sending all my big bear hugs your way. I am always here for you and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, my beautiful peach. Don't forget to snag your completely free high-protein macro cookbook by simply doing a 5-star rate and review on this podcast. All you need to do is submit a 5-star rate and review, then send us your name and email through the link in the show notes so we know exactly where to send your cookbook. By submitting your 5-star rate review, this will also automatically enter you into the weekly podcast macro calculator giveaway. Every week, I give away a copy of my C. Schmidt macro calculator to one lovely winner who leaves an awesome 5-star rate and review. This winner is announced every week on my Instagram story as well as my newsletter email list. So leave that 5-star rate and review, and I'll see you in the next episode.